All right, welcome to the NoteWorthy USA podcast. I'm Ben Fredricks, back with you for another episode. Before we get started with our guests today, I just want to remind you that you can go get our newsletter for free right now at noteworthyusa.com/free newsletter. I'll put that link in the show notes. It's chock full of information on notes, real estate, business, and personal development, and we put that out on a monthly basis. So it's completely free content, and we've got some of the best experts in the industry, helping us produce that every single month for you. Also, if you want to connect with more note investors or people in the real estate space, you can also check out our completely free Facebook group, which is NoteWorthy USA Note Investors. So network, ask questions about the business, make connections, do deals, all of that, 100% free. So now that we've got the plugs out of the way, we'll get into our guest today. And I met our guest today about 4 years ago at a real estate investing event in Palm Beach. And over time, we've become friendly. We've looked at real estate deals together over the years. He's spoken at our last two Noteworthy events. And, he's outspoken, says exactly what he thinks, which is probably one of the reasons I like him the most. And also, he's the kind of people I like to be around because he thinks big, which forces me to think bigger, which is always exciting to get around people that want to do big things and are excited about doing big things. They live their life in a positive manner. He's probably one of the most methodical people that I know in the way that he learns and the way that he studies things. And beyond all that, we're doing some exciting stuff together to develop property and business on the island of Roatan. And we'll be doing another trip out there probably early this fall. So if you're interested in something like that, I'll put a link in the show notes that you can connect with us if you would like to invest in property in the Caribbean. So welcome to the show, my friend Ken Abdullah. What's up, buddy?
Hey, brother. I appreciate it a ton, man. I've smiled a couple times there because the methodical piece of me that some people like, my wife, it drives her crazy. So I'm like, now I've got documented proof.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. Like I tend to a lot of times fly by the seat of my pants. And so, when I come across people that are different than me, they're more interesting because it forces you to look at things in a different way. So, I think some of the conversations that we've had over the years, especially probably this last year, have been very interesting to me because just the way that you approach things and the way that you look at things. And we're going to talk about a lot of the stuff that you do, especially a specific thing that you have, an event that you have coming up next week. Right. But, why don't you give our listeners a little bit of background on yourself, and, we'll start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always make the joke, like I'm typically not the smartest guy in the room, and that goes much further than just entrepreneurialism. I'm a high school dropout. I don't have it, all together. A lot of people don't know that. I did drop out of school. I ended up going to college, but even then, once I graduated, I realized it was just a big waste of time for me. And it's funny because as I approach different situations, I almost approach it from a safety standpoint because I just, I've got a ninth grade education. Sure, there's degrees behind that education afterwards, but at the end of the day, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So as I walked away from school and went into corporate America, I started to really study methodically, how does money work? From there, I developed a financial literacy and realized I've got an opportunity in a couple different places. So as a real estate guy, that real estate changed my life. There's a lot of things I love about it. There's a lot more that I don't like about it. So it forced me to go into other verticals, such as I'm a professional stock trader, been doing that for a long time, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And I got my hands on a lot of things at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, what it really boils down to is business is easy once we understand how to make it easy. So a little nugget there that we'll touch on a little bit later, but it's a high level view real quick.
Yeah. So I think that's funny, right? Like I remember being in high school and I had a friend of mine that dropped out, and there was such a stigma behind that. Like, what are you going to do with your life?
Yeah.
Like, how are you
everything's over at this point.
Yeah. And, it's funny, I got to college myself, and I quickly realized that, I thought I was going to be a cop. And the first semester of criminal justice education, at the school I was going to, they basically try to get you to not become a cop. They show you the stuff
Interesting.
that you don't want to see. Like they try to weed you out, so
Right.
which I'm thankful for. I'm glad that they did that. They show you all these pictures of terrible accidents, and oddly enough, I was the only student in the class. Like it was this
Really?
yeah, it was this private Catholic school that I went to, and there were supposed to be other students, but for whatever reason, they had dropped the class, and it was me and the professor, who was a police officer also, and he just decided to keep the class, and so
No kidding.
yeah, so it was a weird deal, but in the end, like I told him, like at the end of that class, I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to change my major. I don't think
Yeah.
being a cop is for me, and ultimately, I couldn't really find what was for me. I was just like, I don't think college is the path for me. And so I ended up leaving Iowa and moving to Florida. And, just my first job was sales. And then I was
Yeah.
like, okay, something related to this is what it's going to be. And I didn't think that there would be a self-employed or entrepreneurial aspect to it. That I didn't come from a family like that. I don't know
Mhm.
if you did, where there were people that were in business in your
Yeah.
family. Do you have that kind of?
Yeah. So I got to watch really my parents, their rise and fall. Like for me in my mind as a child, it was always like the empire, rise and fall of Rome.
Yeah.
So my father was always entrepreneurial, but he was, um, we went from, dude, when I tell you, we went from like rags to rags to riches multiple times. Watching my parents, how they adjusted and flowed. I didn't know really what was happening as a child. I always thought we were just good. At one point in my life, I was personally sleeping in a hallway of a 2-bedroom house. So it was me, my mom, dad, my sister. There was this extension of this 700 square foot house that we were living in, and I was in a hallway, and I had no clue as a child because my mom made it a home.
Yeah.
I didn't realize until I was like 11 or 12, when we were living in a fairly large house at this point, um, that we had come from pretty much nowhere. And it was just watching my father and mother, build their company, and ultimately it ended up biting them, and we lost everything. But watching them fight back and dig through it was what gave me my spirit when I was getting punched in the face with my entrepreneurial journey. But yeah, so I got to see my mother and father go through that, and then really just the way that they handled it disguised everything from me. So that helped me to get out of my box, because I was a shy guy. You know me very well. It's probably crazy to hear that at one point I was shy, but I used to be a very, very shy kid, and watching them really just have to rebuild multiple times when I got, to knocking doors and doing sales at a young age. I always just remembered, like, hey, they did it multiple times. So it was a blessing and a curse. I could say that much for sure.
Yeah. You said something interesting just a bit ago, like when you were giving your introduction, that business is easy.
Mhm.
And I wonder if that's something that you tell yourself so that you're constantly pushing forward, because business is freaking hard, man. Like there's,
Yeah.
there's just a situation that my wife is owns her own practice, and, she was having her own issues yesterday with staff, and there's
Mhm.
always challenges that come along with it. And, you and I are no strangers to any of that. It's like, it's peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys. And,
Yeah.
a lot of times it's uh, the mindset that pushes you through those things, like
Yeah.
I'll give you a story. So yesterday, uh, my wife was pretty upset when she came home, in terms of like this drama that was happening inside of her office. And then last night we had a date night. And
Right.
so we were driving on our way to go see the new Mission Impossible movie. And about quarter to a half mile in front of us, I see this car get airborne, and it just flips over like in the middle of I-95.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So we stop. My wife is obviously, she's a doctor, so she rushes up there to like help people, pulling people from the car, and it was funny after all. Thankfully, nobody was killed. They were just pretty messed
Beat
up.
up.
And
Yeah.
so the ambulance arrives, and we go on our way. But it was funny to me at not funny, but she made a sort of a poignant remark that she was like, you know what, I was just thinking all the shit that I went through today, it's irrelevant. It's
Yeah.
insignificant, you know, because those people could have lost their lives. And I that's why I asked that question, is just because it was on my mind. You know, when you said that, like, it's easy, is like, is that a personal mindset hack for yourself, that you're just like, all right, I'm just gonna label this as easy so that I keep pushing forward?
Yeah, so there's two things inside of that. One, you said label, and that's a big one because everybody has a label today. Everybody's a CEO or a CFO or a manager on duty. So we tend to label ourselves and put ourselves in a box. We can't be in the box. We have to get out of that. And really what it boils down to is business is easy on the surface when it comes down to, hey, if I do 1 + 1, that equals 2. Once I get away from addition, I can then multiply. So if 1 + 1 got me 2, well, if I do that multiple times and I can 10x that, 5x it, 3x or whatever, I should, in theory, get the same result. We know that that's not always the case. However, I can measure it. So if I can measure it, that means that I can improve upon it. So once I have the metrics, once I have the numbers, every business is the same. X gets me this, Y gets me that. And I can apply that to whether it's real estate, it's trucking company, distribution, like any of the businesses that we have, it's just numbers. But the biggest piece is we always tend to put this label on everything. So rather than that, if I just look at it at the surface, to your point, hey, this is easy. That doesn't mean it's not going to be difficult at times, but at its root, it's the same process in every business. How can I go and get an increase here? Well, there's only one way to do it. I have to measure it. Then I have to set a target. And then I take those numbers and apply it to whatever that is. And I either get a rise or I don't. In its simplest form, that's all business is. But then we get emotional, we get tied to the business, and we create what I call a Frankenstein business. I think I've told you that before, but for your listeners, if you're in the middle of building a business right now, this kind of ties back into that accident. If you're in the middle of building a business right now, what's more important? I hear guys say all the time, like, man, I'm making time for the family this weekend. We're going on a trip. You're doing life wrong entirely. If you're making time for family, you should be making time for your business, because you're consumed with your family. You're consumed with your children. You're consumed with the trip and being present. If you're on a trip or you're on vacation, you're on your phone responding to that email, you don't have a business. You have a Frankenstein business. And if you remember Frankenstein in the book, at the end, the doctor dies. He spent his entire life work trying to get him to come alive, get his monster to come alive. And at the very end, the monster kills him. And that's what's going to happen in your business. So the reason business is easy is not only the numbers, but if you really look at it, if you build your business properly, 4 foundations, everything should be around your family. And then and what's important to you, your time, which you can never get back. If you make that the core focus, the business is the byproduct, and the byproduct of an efficient business is monetary freedom, ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful stuff, man. Like, and I think that the core of our audience that listens, I mean, I think that's the reason why they do notes or real estate, is to provide that type of lifestyle,
Yeah.
so where the business is producing so that they can have the freedom to do the things that they want. I know, was real estate sort of your first entrepreneurial venture, or was it something else?
So my first business was a lawn care business. I built a lawn company. This is actually kind of how I figured out that I didn't have to work for money. So I was 11 and I had been selling candy. I was selling, stuff for our soccer team, baseball team,
Yeah.
doing anything I could to get, cleats or a bat. And at the end of the day, I started cutting grass. So my mom bought me a lawnmower, but I'm talking one of those ones with like the spinning blades, like an
Yeah.
old school, like
Yeah.
cigar
Manual.
looking thing. Yeah. So I'm out there cutting my neighbor's grass, and I'm, $10 here, $15 there, $20. And we lived in Kansas. So you made the joke about Iowa yesterday when we were chatting, but I lived in Kansas, and man, there ain't nothing to do. So I show up to school one day and I've got like brand new shoes on that I'd paid for. And my buddies were kind of like shocked because we weren't well off, but I remember having like this Velcro wallet and I opened it. There was like $60 in there, but we thought we were loaded.
Yeah.
Um, I say we because my friends thought that they had money because I had it. And that wasn't the case. But they ended up asking questions. And I was like, look, come with me. I will show you what I'm doing. And all you have to do is help me get more yards and I'll get you guys these lawnmowers. So these lawnmowers were $60. I already had the money, so I bought another one myself and I gave it to my buddy. And then I showed him, hey, let's just go knock doors. So I was knocking doors at 11 years old, getting rejected, understanding what it felt like at a very young age.
Yeah.
And I built out like my entire neighborhood. We had over 30 yards. And I just bought 4 of my buddies' lawnmowers, these little $60 lawnmowers, and had them doing it. And they got a cut. And that was my first real business that I built out. But from that, real estate really captivated me because I understood the power. And I always remember watching. It's funny because me and my mentor of mine, somebody Mark, we shared this growing up. I used to watch Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, and
Yeah.
I always watched these guys rolling around in their Rolls Royce and their cigar. So I would buy Black and Milds and drive around in my little
Yeah.
beat up Eclipse that I had, thinking in my mind, hey, I'm in the Rolls, I've got the cigar. And Lifestyle of the Rich and Famous taught me that most of those people on that show were either high level entrepreneurs in CEO positions or real estate capitalists. So I always had it in my mind, that's a route that's going to help me build wealth. That's how I got there.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Yeah. It's funny enough. I mowed lawns. I don't see any kids mowing lawns anymore. It's all like adults that grew up mowing lawns,
Yeah.
that own businesses now. They've
Yeah.
kind of like either the kids don't have the initiative to do it today, or they've just run them out of business, by being so efficient at it. But
Yeah.
it's funny that you did it that way. I had something a little bit different. I'll date myself a little bit, but there used to be this service where they would send you CDs in the mail, right? So,
Right.
and if you bought like they would send you like 15 CDs,
Right.
you had to buy 2, right? So
Right. I
I
remember
would,
those 100%.
yeah, yeah. So I would I would figure out like what were the most popular 15 CDs at the time and
Yeah.
order those. And then I would take them to school and sell them.
Yeah.
And then, I'd have enough to just buy my own shit, like my
Yeah.
own preferred music. So, I don't know where that actually came from. Like, for me, like I know that my grandparents owned rental properties and I thought that was interesting and neat,
Yeah.
but my parents worked for the federal government. So there was no, hustle or anything like that. It was just going to work and,
Right.
doing your thing. So I'm curious, did you see that coming from someone? I mean, your parents were entrepreneurial. So were they kind of encouraging you to push you in that direction? Or was it just like you were
No,
witnessing it and had the
not
fun?
not at all. My parents were very much, they grew up, not well off, both of them. And I very much came up in the household that you need to get good grades, you need to go get a good job. But I was watching them build this business, and I'm like, why are you telling me to do this, but you're not doing that? So I just didn't believe them. And then I got into school and I hated it. I couldn't focus. I wasn't, they labeled me ADD. I don't believe in that shit. Um, if anything, if I do have it, it's the biggest blessing ever because I can do so much more than most people. Because my wife would call me scattered, but that scattered has built many businesses, successful businesses, but a lot failed along the way. But no, I never really got pushed. It was more so. I'll tell you the one person that really changed my life. Um, outside of the many people that did, but I had the guidance counselor that told me to drop out of high school, changed my life
They
because
encourage you to do it.
he encouraged me. He was basically, I was in there for some discipline reasons. I wasn't a good kid in school at all. Um, and I mean, we were on a first name basis. Like I saw him all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I was Saturday work details, just, I was not the best student. And I walked in there one day, he was like, you're not going to graduate. You're messing all this up. What you should probably do is just quit and go get a low level job at a warehouse. And that's where you're going to spend the rest of your life. I was like, bet. Cool. I don't have to do this anymore. I'm in.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. I quit because of this guy. But But when I was working a warehouse job, pushing a broom, 12-hour, night shifts at this point in my life, I just was pissed off at him. And it fueled me, dude, to just
Yeah.
prove him wrong. And then from that, I had the support of my parents, telling me pretty much, hey, you got to figure this out. You're on your own. And they helped where they could, but they very much were, you got yourself here, get yourself out. Um, so that guy changed my life. And then along the way, I had a bunch of mentors and support. But yeah, I didn't really have too much in the household that pushed me that way.
Yeah. You said something interesting there that I've heard before from Ed Milet, where he talks about, where parents tell their kids, you can do anything, you can be anything. And at some point, their kids get smart and figure it out. And they say, well, why aren't you?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And man, I remember the first time I heard that, it really threw me for a loop. I was
Mhm.
like, oh shit.
Yeah,
Uh,
dude.
I got work to do as
It's
well,
deep.
at
It's
some
deep,
point.
man.
Yeah. So, and
Think about this, man. So the reason school didn't work for me is because I've always been outspoken. I mean, since you've known me, I speak what's on my mind. I've always been that way. And it came from, we moved so much when I was a child. Like literally I was in a different school every year until 8th grade,
wow.
maybe 7th grade. So I went from being this shy kid to not having any friends to, hey, I can be whoever I want in this new school.
Yeah.
So it forced me to go make friends all the time, different girlfriends, different friends, new city in a couple months. So I've always been the guy that, well, I was never scared to ask the question. I didn't care if somebody thought I was stupid. I didn't care the people behind me that were like, oh man, we have to learn this again. I'm here trying to figure this out. But eventually it got the best of me because my teachers, the people that were I'm supposed to be looking up to, basically kept silencing me. They kept saying like, hey, we'll get back to that. Or, hey, we already went over that. You're going to have to do that on your own. And I'm like, I'm here now. Why do I have to go do that? I don't know the answer at home. That's why I'm fucking asking you.
Yeah.
So it got to a point in society that we stopped asking questions. We stopped asking why. So now we've got a huge movement of people that are just robots. They're zombies. They don't question anything. So the guys and gals that are entrepreneurial, they're the ones that kept asking questions. They're the ones that didn't quit on the dream. They're the ones that still believe till this day as grown adults that they can be astronauts and they could be the president. And as kids, I wanted to be a famous baseball player. That was my dream. I chased it until I couldn't play anymore, and I still ask questions till this day. So when my sons and my daughter, when she can start speaking here, asks questions, I'm going to give them every answer. I'm never going to be like, hey, stop asking questions. Never going to tell them that's a silly question, it's a dumb question. Ask, because the rest of society is not going to, and they're going to suppress it. I think that's the difference between the guys that made it and the ones that didn't.
Mm. Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I mean, so talk about like, do you still own real estate now, or have you moved on from that completely?
Yeah, so I mean, I own a little bit of stuff, not near as much as I did before. I was doing a whole lot of arbitrage type stuff. I always call it fail B&B. I'm not good at Airbnb. So fail B&B or bust B&B is always what I've called that. I know
Yeah.
some guys in my network that are doing very well with it. It just wasn't for me. But my main focus is what we're doing at Roadtown right now, man. Like
Yeah.
when it first came down the pipeline, I was like, I don't really know. And then we got there and it was like, what do I have to do? Whatever we have to do to go, build this island up and build the land. And then really it was, who can I do it with? And when, we got there and we had the crew that we had, it was unbelievable. So as I began to pull away from real estate, Roatan sucked me right back in. I'm all in on real estate again. Now that I'm armed with the knowledge that I have, I'll be doing it much different.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's just a beautiful project.
Yeah. I mean, those kinds of questions are key, right? The ability to ask questions like, how do we do it? Like, because for me, it's a completely different game. Not only is it a different country, right?
Yeah.
And like it's outside of the comfort zone of what I know, but it's like development. And I'm like, oh, okay, shit, I don't know a damn thing about development. How can I
Yeah.
learn more about it? Like, what
Right.
could we do with it? Like, How can we position it? And those kinds of stretches are usually where you have the most growth. I mean, not like a muscle. It's kind of like a muscle,
It
right?
is. It is a muscle.
Yeah, if you don't stretch it out, it's not going to grow. So, I appreciate your ability to ask those kinds of questions, because a lot of times I've been in positions like that where I've had things I'm like, that's too big. Like, I don't know how to even make that work. Like,
Yeah.
and a lot of times I've had, on the smaller stuff, I just go, I'm like, all right, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's been a mindset shift to be like, okay, well, you could just do that with the bigger stuff too. I mean, somebody else is doing it that way.
Right.
They didn't know what the hell they were doing the first time they got started. So why not me? Why not us? Why aren't we doing it? So,
Dude, so there's a couple different things in there that you said. So one, all the questions that we asked, how do we do this? How is it possible? Why do we do it? If that guy can do it, I can do it. That just goes back to those questions. Like, if we ask the how, then everything else becomes possible. So inside of that, if you think about, the Roatan deal, the gentleman that helped us to not only supply, or excuse me, the gentleman that supplied the capital that we needed to expand on this project, he learned development, and he's a big developer now out on the West Coast. He learned it because his guys sucked at it. And he was like,
yeah,
look, I have to do this myself. I know nothing about it. And he, rather than saying, hey, I don't want to do this anymore or whatever, he asked those questions. How do we do this? How do I learn this? And he just got in there and started doing it. So it boils down to, you don't have to get it right out of the gate. You just got to start. You got to get it going. And from that, everything else expands, because you didn't know how to ride a bike, but you started asking yourself how. Somebody showed you eventually, and then you just kept on going. But we always try to cut corners, and frankly, hiring mentors, things like that helps to cut those corners. But you got to get your hands dirty. You got to go mess something up in order to get better at it.
yeah,
So many people are trying to get it perfect before they do anything. I want imperfect action that will give me perfect results, versus the perfect action that someone like me is going to come right behind you and already have passed you because you were waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for the perfect time.
yeah. Yeah, that was one of the things that kind of drove me crazy growing up, was like, there was not a lot of action,
Yeah.
going on, where there were opportunities.
Just in Iowa in general.
Yeah, yeah. I could recognize them as a kid, where I was just like, this could be like, so I didn't know everything, but obviously, and I still don't know everything, but I would see opportunities and be like, why? We have the ability to probably do that. Why aren't we doing that?
Yeah.
And so now, as an adult, like, I see those things, and I take a different approach. And I guess I'm thankful that, I kind of grew up that way, because it does oftentimes give me a moment of pause when I'm looking at something, to be like, all right, how do I, and then,
Yeah.
but it also is like, it pushes me to do more, because I don't, and this isn't disrespect to anybody that, I grew up with, or, as my family or whatever, they're all fantastic people. It's just a different path, so,
Yeah.
and a different way that I want to live my particular life. When we looked at Roatan, as a big opportunity, the immediate conversation that we had was like, okay, how can we do this and then do it with people that we like?
Dude, that was such a big one. It
Yeah,
was such a big one, man.
yeah. That's why I invited the people that I invited, because I was like, you know what, if I'm going to be doing a project, it's like, I got to have people around me, number one, that I want to do it with,
Right.
and that are moving the same direction. They have sort of the same value system, and all of that. And so the space of Roatan itself is like, that takes care of itself, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's beautiful. There's no getting around that. And it's very relaxed, and everybody there, I don't think I saw one person that was upset or,
Dude,
agitated.
I've never been to a third world country like that. Well, I don't know. I don't know if we can call it third world. Would you classify it third world?
I mean, they have roads. So
Yeah, I mean, there
don't.
was a McDonald's, so they got to be.
That's true. Yeah. So
They had a Wendy's.
I'm not sure.
I've never been in a place like that where I wasn't on my toes. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
feel threatened the entire time we were there.
Yeah.
It blew my mind, honestly. I was just like, man, everybody is so freaking nice here. Like, they
Yeah.
want us to be here. It was really, really cool. I enjoyed
Yeah.
that
And
a
I
lot.
mean, yeah, and all the expats, I mean, everybody that's an American that was there living there full time, like they
Yeah,
had
that blew my mind, dude.
one thing in common. They all had a great big smile on their face,
Yeah,
So whether they were a realtor or a developer or just the guy that owned the hotel, just very relaxed, low key, chill. And I was like, that's the kind of life I want to have
yeah,
more of, So
yeah. Let
I'm
me
glad
ask
we
you a
were able to.
question.
Yeah,
What was your biggest hesitation before we pulled the trigger on Roton?
I guess it seems so far beyond anything I've ever done.
Yeah,
Um, that it's like, man, I can't wrap my head around doing that,
right.
so, and it's far away too. It's like my wife and I have always dreamed of, like, either we watch that show Caribbean Life on
Yeah,
HGTV like on
yeah,
Sundays, it's like something we watch. So, and we have this vision of owning like a lakefront property, and just
right.
living somewhere where we've got water. And so, you know it's there right in front of you sometimes. Like, an opportunity is like right there in front of you,
Yeah,
and you're like, well, wait a minute, I've been waiting for something like this. And so
right.
sometimes you just have to, you know, run before you can even walk. And
Mhm.
so I think, yeah, to answer your question, I mean, the biggest hesitation was just like, I just don't know what I don't know about this.
Yeah,
So, and it's like, all right, well, I feel, which is absurd, given the climate we live in, I feel safe, right, in America, but that doesn't mean anything,
yeah,
so, like, it means nothing.
yeah,
So a lot of people are not safe in America. So it's like, okay, but this is just something that's a roadblock in my head, from doing something that could be pretty awesome.
yeah. I kept running into it's actually on the flight home because when we were there, I'm all in,
Yeah.
and then you get out of the excitement of what you just spent, the last couple of days experiencing. And when I was on the plane, dude, I just went through this spiral. Like I was like, man, is this something that we really want to do? What am I getting myself into? Is it something that we don't necessarily know? So I literally on the plane drew a T chart and was just like pros and cons. And the pros outweighed the cons so much. And even the cons, it was just they were unknowns that we came to know. My
Yeah.
first thought was, what's the political climate? And then you get there and you realize they're completely different from Honduras and entirely.
Yeah.
The fact that you kind of get voted off the island if you do wrong and you can never
Yeah.
come back. Like that was
It's
that was
survival.
huge. Yeah. So um that's what was the biggest hesitation. But imagine this. Let's go back to the questions. Imagine we just don't ask those questions. Imagine if, the Wright brothers were just not, they just gave up and they're like, yeah, we can't fly. It's not possible. And Edison and Tesla working on electricity. Like, imagine if they just stopped asking questions to move the needle forward. So again, just not to beat a dead horse, but we have to ask all the time, how? And from that how, literally magic is born.
Yeah, what really tipped the scales for me was, the relationships that we'll have on the island,
Yeah.
with the people there, the developers, and the local leadership,
Mhm.
was like really cool. If the developer that we're working with, if they weren't as connected as they were, I probably would not have done it. Like,
I agree.
that was the part for me that was like, okay, like, he knows everybody on the island. He knows, like, which wheels need grease or which ones don't, and
Yeah.
how we can work stuff. And then, and add on to that, like, that now we're doing more than just owning real estate there. We're working on building an actual business on the island, which is
Yeah.
bananas. So,
Dude,
but
it'll turn into multiple verticals when you start to
yeah,
think about the tourism, the distribution, like so many different verticals came from just asking ourselves the right questions.
yeah, yeah. And just like taking action and getting on the plane and going, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, I think even you hesitated a little bit, which cost
Mhm.
you a first class seat,
Yeah.
so it
That
was,
sure did. I was so angry.
so,
I think I booked like the last week. I
yeah,
was like, yo,
yeah,
dude, I'm in.
yeah.
Yeah,
So anyway, I'm glad that you even still sometimes, have a little bit of hesitation too. So it doesn't make me feel so bad.
absolutely. If we were saying
Yeah,
yes to everything, dude, we'd have some problems.
that's right. Talk to me. You've got this event coming up next week.
Yeah.
You've been coaching me and several other people on trading and like how we can, create a, not only is, consider it cash flow, but like it's not the same kind of cash flow as real estate. Like it's not, in real estate, I always say passive is a joke anyways. There's always work to be done,
Yeah.
create a lifestyle. That was one of the things that was more appealing about your particular life, is that, you were basically done working in a matter of, an hour or two a day, if that,
Mhm.
and so I was like, gee, that seems interesting to me. And so
Yeah.
as somebody that doesn't know really, or didn't know a damn thing about trading, other than, you put your money in a 401k and then
Oh,
everything works out,
heartbreak.
like, yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
that CEO knows what they're doing and they don't, put the wrong person in a commercial and then tank my stock, so it's like,
Oh man.
it's a weird deal. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about this event, why you're doing trading, like what got you into it, and then how you've learned that process to build, this very easy, I don't call it easy, but like this ability to spend more time, with the doing the things that you want to do rather than working.
Yeah. So I always put a big emphasis on my time. I actually kind of teach this to my oldest and to my wife as well, which is it's okay to be stingy. And there's just times that you have to be stingy with certain things. And one of the things I'm very stingy with is my time. So as I was really trying to understand, how do the wealthy get wealthy, um, I learned about stocks a little bit. I was going to go be a broker. I learned about the real estate side, but trading appealed to me so much because there was so much emotion involved in it. So, it's one thing to buy stocks. You just set it and forget it. You hope it does well. Obviously, there's ways to do very well on that side. But I've done every type of stock, whether it was, treasury bonds, T-bills, options trading, Forex trading, all of the different things. And what was most appealing to it is that it was me versus me. I didn't have anybody to work for. I was working for myself. But when I talk about the emotions, when you hear stock trading, the first thing most people think is that, hey, you're a stock trader. They imagine chaos. They imagine the 1980s movies of just paper everywhere and you're
Yeah.
screaming and it's just crazy. But that's not actually how it works. Um, when I began to really get to the root cause of what makes the market move, I began to hire different mentors to understand this. But in short, man, it's you versus you. The charts are there. It's binary outcome. You're wrong or right. It's all about self mastery. So from that, that's what's helped me to develop the other businesses, to develop, being a better husband, being a better father. Like the charts exposed all of that to me. And I always make the joke that the charts expose you. They expose the real you, who you really are emotionally. You may think you have it together, but you get in front of those charts and it'll expose you very quickly. So in short, over the 15 years that I've been doing this, there's it is simple. You said it. How did you do this simply? It's because it goes back. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I use pen and paper for everything. I just have to simplify everything. So when it comes down to the market, there's two ways that this thing works. You got big banks that are moving the market around. You can either be with them or you can be against them. The thing about the big banks is there is literally a language that they speak. And inside of that language, legally, they have to tell you where they're taking the market. There's tools that I've been able to develop and understand over the years, over the last 15 years, that help us know exactly what's happening in the market. Furthermore, the financial climate. Once you understand how to read this language, which takes a couple weeks to learn, and then there's obviously executing that. But when you take all of that knowledge that you'll obtain, you can navigate every market, whether it's the stock market, the Forex market, the real estate market, the political climate. You'll know what's happening because the big banks are telling you what to do. So as much as we want to say the government's the big bad wolf, the banks are the big bad wolf, they tell us what they're doing. We just choose to go against them. But once you understand the language and where they're going, you just hop on board with them. It's very, very simple. It's just it literally is learning a new language.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. The emotional part of it, you're right, is definitely the most challenging. Like, because you always say this in the training, like look left, and that's a lot about life. When you're looking left, you're looking at the past, right? So you're looking at, all right, this is what it did. This is how I reacted to it, and so a lot of times if you might not like living in the past, but you have to live there a little bit and analyze why you made a
Yes.
particular move,
Yes.
or why you did something. And so I did, without any suggestion of that. I mean, one of the things I did a lot when I was a kid was journal, so my mom bought me some journals and I would journal about my life. And it's interesting to go back. Now we have Facebook. You can go back and see, like Facebook will show you, thoughts that you shared or
Yeah.
posts or whatever. And I don't know about you, some of those, they make me
I'm
forget.
looking for my journal right now because it's usually on my desk. But dude, till
Oh,
this day, I still every day I write every day.
yeah. And it makes you cringe because you're like, oh God, I really thought like that, or I really was doing that.
Yeah.
But in trading, to bring that back around, like journaling there is also sort of the same thing, because you're looking at it like, okay, what was I thinking here?
Right.
And what's the lesson I learned on it? Like today, I screwed something up. I did something I shouldn't have. And so I had to write it down and say, okay,
Yeah.
why did I do it? I was chasing. I wasn't supposed to do that. I wasn't
Right.
following my rules, So, and it is you versus you. And that's great. But also a lot of people are their own worst enemies.
Yeah.
So, what type of person do you think is most suited for, doing this kind of activity in terms of trading?
I don't think there's a type. I don't believe there's a type. I honestly think that anybody can do this. Everybody can do this. It's the ones that stick it out. Imagine you spent the last 7 years building your real estate portfolio, building your business, and then you're just like, one day, I'm done. I'm just going to quit. I'm not going to do this anymore ever again. All of that would be in vain.
Yeah.
So you go through the couple weeks that it takes to really kind of understand what's happening in the market, and then you dedicate to the mastery of your emotions, and you find all of the success. You become a different breed. Once you know what's happening, then you can print money. You literally can. You just sit there and you got to be patient. Anybody can do that. My 16-year-old son is learning this right now. I've got a student right now that's 14. His dad is supporting him. Dad wants nothing to do with it, but his son has been looking into it. They've been following me for a long time, and he's crushing right now. Dude, I've got doctors, I've got attorneys, I've got entrepreneurs, I've got kids that are still in school. I've got a plethora, and everybody's having success, but they put in the work. Don't get me wrong. It will be easy. It's not easy in the beginning, but imagine the confidence that will come from you when you know you can sit here and master your emotions, be a master of it, because you put in the time documenting what happened, how you felt when this happened. You put all of that time in. The next time you run into a situation where, maybe emotions get high in the house, you
Yeah.
are a self-mastery at that point. You know, hey, in the past, this is what I did. I don't want that result again. So I'm just not going to give that any energy. So in short, this is literally for anybody and everybody. If there's someone that I would push this more to, it's the guys that aren't where they want to be from a time perspective. When you'd mentioned earlier, I'm done in an hour a day. And the only reason I'm on any longer than an hour is because I got students.
Yeah.
Typically I'm done 15 minutes a day. And that's, sometimes it's 15 grand, sometimes it's 100 grand. Over this challenge that we've done the last couple of weeks, it's only been 40 grand. Actually, my worst day this week was 20 grand. That's normal. It sounds crazy because it wasn't normal back then, but I have to first teach you how to make $100. If I
Yeah.
can teach you how to make $100, I can teach you how to make $100,000 doing the same exact thing. But I got to get to the emotions of you first. And that's what this challenge is about. It's a 3-day class. And we're literally going to, for the listeners that are listening to this part, when I tell you the market's predictable, challenge me. I will prove to you time and time again, and every one of my students that didn't believe, there's not a single student that believed me when I said it. It's 1000% predictable, and I prove it every single day. And the reason it's predictable is because they have to tell us where it's going. So the challenge is going to expose that. We're going to expose the big banks. We're going to expose the language. And then frankly, if you're sitting on a 401k, you can literally look and be like, oh my gosh, I know what's about to happen. I need to get my money out of here. It gets wild.
Yeah. And guys, I mean, there's something that really kind of blew my hair back about it was, in real estate, I've used private money to build up most of my portfolio. And there's something akin to that in trading that I was not even aware of, where you can
Yeah.
get an actual trade with other people's money, and become a
At no risk, at
Yeah.
no risk, zero risk.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty spectacular. So, and then basically, how do people do that, Ken? Like, what's the process of becoming a funded trader?
Yeah. So the real cool part about this is, and frankly, listen to this business model, because you have to know the why behind why they do this. 98% of people will watch a bunch of YouTube videos, but try to go apply this to the market. They just don't put in the time. But the real math is 98% of traders don't make money. There's only 2% in the world, and we're developing more and more of those literally weekly. But to become that 2%, these guys they'll fund you. So what they do is they say, here's your rule set. Make this much money. We don't care how long it takes you to do it, but follow these guidelines to show that you're able to protect the capital. It'll be fake in the beginning, but once you pass this test, we're willing to put our money where our mouth is. So we'll give you 150, 200, $300,000. Just give us 10%. So their business model is they know 98% of people will fail. So they charge to take a test. It's $100. Right now they're running a special. It's like $14 to take their test. 98% of people aren't going to pass that. So they're just collecting. It's a win-win for them. They're not only collecting on the fees, but when they do find the 2%, they're making 10%. So it's a phenomenal business model, which I'm literally trying to understand the legality side of it to build. It's 100% legal, but I want to build it myself for myself, because if I can find not only the traders that I'm working with now and helping, but I can also create an education platform that will help those, I get the best of both worlds. We create education that works for everybody. We create more than 2% of traders. And then from that, we can put our own capital at work and help those guys build their accounts and ours. Like it's a huge win-win. But in short, the way that model works, they're going to fund you. You go to one of the vendor partners that we work with. There's 4 that I work very closely with, that if you can abide by their rules, they'll literally hand you 150, 200, 300K to go and trade with. And when I said no risk, they won't let you lose their money. So if you blow the account, they're not coming after you for it. It's literally in their contract. So this is literally, I guess there is risk. It's the $14 you spent to take the test.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you can't risk $14, then you probably shouldn't be doing it at all.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So did I tell you guys that Ken thinks big? So like he's asking, you can hear him continually asking the how inside of trading. Like, how can I, one, make this more accessible for people to get into that 2%? But then once they do, how can I grow even more and help them grow even more, through, becoming, this funded trading partner. So that's exciting stuff, man. I think you'll crush it. Ken's an excellent teacher on this stuff. He simplifies it. Like, it makes it far less complicated than what it is. And
dude, there's so much jargon in the industry. When I tell you 9th grade education, high school dropout, I have to simplify it. I don't know any other way. When I hear the big terminology, I'm just like, what does that even mean? And the only way that I can make it applicable is to literally, I dumb it down. That's the only terminology, for lack of a better term, that I can think of, is I need to apply it in a fashion that makes sense to me and whoever it is that I'm working with.
Yeah. So Ken's got a class coming up, and I'll put this in the show notes. But the link is prosperuptrades.zee.am. Again, I'll put that in the show notes, so you can click on that. It's happening. What are the dates, Ken?
So the 8th through the 10th, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard.
Okay. So you won't be necessarily live trading, I'm assuming, just kind of looking at the market and teaching on what's going on.
We will go, it won't be a live market, but I'm going to let somebody, and we'll do this each night. We're going to let somebody pick a random day. It can be any day that they want, and we'll go replay that day. I don't know what happened 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks. I don't remember. I don't care. And we'll trade it live together on the things that we did here. And then together we'll literally talk through the market. Hey, what do we want to do here? Do we want to take this trade? Do we not? Why are we not taking it? Does it fall under these rules? and we'll go and make $20,000-$30,000 on a call together. Easy.
Yeah, guys, it's challenging. Like it will rewire your brain, like Ken said, probably in multiple areas of your life to like, all right, this is, I'm thinking about things in a different way. But it's a good kind of challenge. Like it's really refreshing to kind of push yourself into doing something that pushes you, number one, out of your comfort zone, but also helps you assess who you are. Like Ken said, like, why did I make this decision? Like, am I doing it emotionally? Am I just being, too spontaneous in the way that I'm going about things? And it's really self-reflection is probably probably the second biggest benefit behind making money, that comes along with it. So
yeah,
maybe even the first benefit.
The big thing here is you don't need a bunch of stuff on your screen. You don't need 40 different charts and a bunch of indicators. Frankly, you guys, I mean, I don't have a bunch of stuff on my chart as it is. Very, very clean. And at the end of the day, this is a 15-20 minute objective. Like, we're in the market in and out, but more so than anything, the support behind this continues. I go live every single morning. I literally trade live with the students every single morning. So if you guys want to see me in action live and my students live, we do it. The trades that I take are very quick, so you don't even have the opportunity to copy them if you wanted to. That's on purpose. But you can literally see us execute this every single day. Join the private Facebook group and see results all the time. So the live piece is a really, really big deal for those that are interested in growing.
Awesome. How can people connect with you otherwise?
So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, it's all under the same handle. It's official Ken Abdullah, and it's ABDULLAH. So official Ken Abdullah on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
All right, we'll put those in the show notes too. So, well, buddy, I know you've got a tea time today, so I won't keep you.
Of course.
One of these days.
Like 4 or 5 days a week.
Oh yeah.
We'll get you out there.
Yeah, for sure. You can come over here too. I got a club membership, so
Let's do it.
Happy to whip you on my own club.
I'm in.
So. All right, buddy. Well, thanks for joining me today. Hit up Ken, connect with him. Definitely, I would encourage you to get to his event next week. It might be one of the better things you ever do. So
yeah, it's a Zoom call. It's a Zoom call. So don't you don't got to leave the comfort of your home. We're good.
Absolutely. Now, if you do want to leave the comfort of your own home and go to Roatan with us, hit the link in the show notes, and we can have a conversation and see if it'd be a good fit for you. So until next time, we'll catch you later.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, brother.